Okay, so welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and another rambles of what's been going on in World of Tanks this week, and it's been pretty quiet since the end of Gamescom. Not an awful lot happening, to be honest, but we'll take a look at obviously 9.20 went live on Russian, European, and North American server yesterday. Southeast Asia, I believe, is another week. Sorry, guys, you're going to have to wait. I don't know why they always the poor relations of the party. But anyway, so we'll talk a little bit about some of the updates there. I'm not going to go into huge detail because we've talked about it incessantly, haven't we? We'll take a look at some of the HD maps that are coming. Also, some of the sad lack of content that came out of Gamescom this year. Really strange. Normally one of the big shows for launching new content and giving us an idea of what's coming. Strangely lacking, and we'll look at why that might be. Also talk about, well, it's a minor Foshgate that's happening alongside with sister title World of Warships. It's kind of resolved itself, I think, but just talk about that and what that means. Anyway, enough of this kerfuffle. Let's get on and look at first thing 9.20, released yesterday, Wednesday, on most of the servers, apart from our poor friends down in Southeast Asia. So it was a pretty big patch. It was downtime for this was 6.5 hours, which is huge, really. So yeah, pretty good. So we won't talk about all the different balancing, but basically Japan, France, US and Russian tanks were all messed around with. The big one is the Foch 155 was replaced with a new tier 10 French tank destroyer, the Foch 50B. Those of it says here, those of you who already had the 155 will get to keep it, so it will be included in your garage as a premium tank. So good luck to you. Well done for those who ground their way through the dog pile that is the French TD line to get to that Foch, because actually the Foch was pretty good, and it'd be interesting to see what the 50B is like. Also, a number of those were buffed in that line, so about time too. Self-propelled gun improvements, so that's another thing. So basically they're looking to reduce splash radius is basically what they're doing for this, particularly if things are behind cover. So there was a few cases of people thinking they're safe hiding behind a bush, hiding behind a building, and artillery land a shell close enough to still knock them out. I don't see the problem with that myself, but hey, it's all our friends the Unicoms who are moaning as usual. Big one, obviously, new tech tree come in, the Chinese tank destroyer line. Really excited about this. This was originally, as we know, supposed to be a Chinese server only line, but they've changed their mind due to public demand, even though nobody was playing it very much on the test server from what I could see. But they'll be coming out and they look pretty decent, so have a look check out some of the videos I've done on the test server. If you're interested in these, I certainly will be grinding them. And in fact, I spent a bit of gold training up a new crew in one of my heavy Chinese premium tanks to be ready for that. So they're pretty much 100% first skill, about 98% at the moment. So looking forward to getting them in the new tanks. Ground battles. So this is a new 30v30 mode that will appear randomly when you click on a tier 10 battle. So if you load up with a tier 10 tank, you click battle, it will randomly assign a 30v30 ground battle mode alongside the standard encounter, assault, blah blah blah. Now what I'm not sure is whether you can turn it off. So if you don't want to play that, I don't know whether it's an option to turn it off, because you can turn off assaults and encounters, so maybe you can on this. But it's basically played on a larger map, 1.4 kilometers squared map. Only tier 10s will participate. 3 spawn points. It's a catch of the flag game or kill everything, so it's just like a standard battle, really. It's only one map at the moment, but I would imagine more will follow, and they are talking about the fact they are proposing to possibly bring this for lower tier tanks at some point, so that will be good. What's interesting with this map and with this version of the game is suddenly light tanks have a role again. So I don't know about you, I very rarely see many light tier 10 tanks in standard battles. The maps are just not friendly for them. They don't have enough going for them really, unless you're a real die-hard player to play them, in my view. Grand Battles changes that because there's a lot more space, a lot more places to hide. You can use that mobility much more effectively. And so will it see a resurgence of tier 10 light tanks? I kind of hope so, but on the same token I kind of hope not, because I think they screwed it up. They should have made them proper scouts, and instead they nerfed them in terms of gunpower, gunfire, and also in terms of view range. So what silly sausages wargaming are. The other interesting thing about Grand Battles is that the bond system will work with these. So remember, this was the alternative currency that wargaming were looking to bring in. So you would, if you played ranked battles, you could earn bonds, and you can exchange them for special equipment. Special equipment like extra gun rammers, a special gun rammer for instance, which would help increase your reloading time even quicker than the standard one. You could also use it on directives on your crew, which was sort of a one-time deal only, so you had to keep refreshing them, a bit like consumables. And a lot of disquiet from me for certain, but a lot of other players and contributors about this bond system basically making better players even better, because they suddenly get all this extra equipment that the poorer players never have access to. Now Wargaming are pushing along with these bonds. It looks like they're going to come into more and more games as we move forward. It looks like there'll be victory conditions with missions where you can earn bonds, and ultimately of course there'll be the old checkbook option, so you will be able to buy bonds in the store, so they are saying. So won't be with this patch, but at some point soon. So I don't, it just strikes me more pay to win, but yeah, what do I know. Anyway, so here we go, bonds. Yeah, we just talked about that. Lots and lots and lots of changes in the new patch. Won't talk any of these. Let's keep going down. So some of the obviously the missions you get or badges you get in Grand Battles will change, because it's suddenly different scenario. You've got 30 tanks aside rather than 15. There's terrain related changes for hard to reach areas in the following maps, blah blah blah. Don't know what that means. Does that mean they're going to cut off even more climbing zones? I kind of hope so, because I think frankly too many times you play a game and you look behind you and there's some turkey in a light tank or a TD who's climbed up way behind your cap and isn't actually helping your team anymore. Changes to vehicles, lots of these. So VK new premium has been super tested. I think this is the big bugger. This is kind of the equivalent of the VK 100-01P, but as a premium. So that's been added to the super tests. The mouse has had a slight nerf. So reload time has dropped from 12 seconds to 13.3, and it's lost 200 hit points on the new patch. Frankly, I don't think that's enough. This thing was just, well, it's just overpowered in my book. But there you go. 8.8 Jag Panther, that's the premium one, isn't it? Better, better dispersion during movement of 6%, better dispersion on hull traverse by 6%, and changes the traverse speed from 22 degrees per second to 26, so it makes that Jag Tiger a little bit more nimble. All the Chinese tanks brought into TDs, brought into the line, as we know. A new light tank, a tier 8 Russian light tank, going to be premium, T-44 lightweight. Basically it's a T-44 but light. Which will be a tier 8 Russian light tank coming into the game at some point, going to the super testers, so that's interesting. Lots and lots, and I'm not going to go through all these changes, but changes to the 54 prototype, the T-44-100, T-44, T-54, IS-7. The big one for me, I'm so sad to see this, the BL-10 gun disappears on the ISU-152, so I check out a video I put up yesterday morning, which is my kind of farewell to that gun, because it's immense. It'll move to the Object 704 at tier 9, but yeah, that was what made the ISU 152 special. Changed the object to 704 and the 268. About time the 268 had a bit of love. It's shit in my view. And the object 140 gets better turret armor because it wasn't good enough to begin with. Someone mentioned Russian bias around here? Russian bias. US changes, pattern, improved turret armor, lots of changes to the M48A1 pattern. French tanks, we talked about the Foch changing, being switched out. There's also changes to increase the effectiveness of a lot of the French tanks, which I think is long overdue, particularly the TDs. They are god-awful in my view. So lots of changes there. I'm not going to go through all these because we've covered it on multiple occasions. What else? There's a replacement. Now you only got, if you're wondering what happened to your Foch, you only got the Foch B, the new tier 10, if you owned and had it in your garage, the Foch 155. If you didn't, you didn't get it. Sorry about that, but that's the rules. I didn't make them. That's wargaming. Japanese tanks, removing the 10cm gun off the OI experimental. They've nerfed a little bit of these Japanese obese tanks, removed a little bit of armor, not a huge amount to be absolutely honest. Type 4 and Type 5 heavies have had a little bit of traverse speed reduced, so they're not quite as nimble using that word with those tanks, but not quite as nimble as they were. They've also got a couple of weak spots now on the front, which or weaker spots. They're still not very weak, because the poor little crybaby Unicums cried about those things being unskilled. Lots of HD, another 12 HD model reworks, so this is a huge package. Miscellaneous improvements, we won't talk about all these, but lots and lots of changes here, little tweaks. Improvements to matchmaking, number of self-propelled guns will be limited to 2 per team. I thought it was already. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all these. You can read this at your leisure. You can see there is a huge amount of changes coming in this patch, which is why it is so big and taking so long to upload. So we'll look and see what happens with 9.20. Is it going to be a winner or not? But let me know down below what you think of this patch, whether you're anything you're excited about, anything you're not. I'm excited about the Chinese TDs myself. I like them. I like TDs generally, and I played a lot of them on test server, and some of them are very, very good indeed. Some of them are not so good, so I'm looking forward to working my way through that line. The new a lot of the reviewers said that, or community contributors said that the new Chinese tier 8 premium tank destroyer, WZ120 whatever it is GT, will appear Wednesday morning. Now as I record this, it hasn't yet, but it could be just because the update is still going on. But if that's in the shops, then I expect people have got their hot little hands on that little baby, because it does look like a beauty. Looks like the Russian tier 7 premium, but upgunned a bit. So the SU 122 44 or whatever it is, that tier 7 premium that people love. This Chinese tier 8 looks very, very similar indeed to that, but a tier higher. So yeah, the other thing I'm not very upset about is the nerfing of the ISU 152. Losing that BL10 gun just makes that just no longer relevant, and I'll probably sell mine. It's sat in the garage. I do play it from time to time. I enjoy it. It's a great fun tank, but it's nothing special if you take away that gun. It just becomes like any other TD, so I'll probably sell it, which is a huge disappointment. But let me know down below whether there's anything you're looking forward to on 9.20, anything you're not. Okay, so let's hop back over to Gamescom, which finished last weekend. Huge lack of interesting news coming out of Gamescom. As far as I was concerned, usually you get an intro to, some real insight into what they're planning at World of Tanks, and there was really nothing. It was largely, basically the new news was HD maps. They showed 3 new HD maps. That was kind of it. Everything else they talked about, they'd already talked about. Nothing new. And it worries me a little bit in that one of the things that I've loved about World of Tanks since I started playing it is the continual reinvention. That wasn't a fart, by the way. That was me moving in my chair. Makes a bit of a noise like that. So it's a continual reinvention of the game, continual refinement of the game, improvement of the game, and I guess you could say they're doing that with these changes and modifications to the tech trees that they're working their way through, and they're going to be working through until, well, probably April time next year, apparently. But it seems to me that the onus in the game has switched to making money blatantly. And now, scream at me all you like, Dom, you're an idiot. They've been trying to make money for forever in this game, and that's true. And to be honest, that's right. They should do. At the end of the day, they're making a product that millions of people are playing, and they need to continue to invest in it. They need to improve it, get it better, build new servers, update the mechanics behind it. All this stuff all costs money, and they need to make a profit on top. That's capitalism. That's the way business works, and I have no problem with that at all. But it never seemed to be as blatant as it is now. The wave of premium tanks coming into the game is just astounding. And I don't need to tell you guys, you go into most matches and 50% of the team is often premium tanks. And I speculated this some time ago. Does anyone actually worry about grinding tech trees anymore? Do you just buy a decent tank, go off and play with that? Now, I know a lot of people still play without paying any money to this game, and good on them. Really good on them. I wish I had your dedication to enjoy a product without spending money on it. I have spent a fortune on this game over the years. I don't begrudge it because it's been one of my hobbies and I've enjoyed it immensely, mostly. Some weekends not so. And I met a lot of people, and I've enjoyed the time, and I love doing these videos as a result of it. But at the end of the day, if the whole reason for playing a game is for them to suck you dry of money, that kind of loses that attraction to me. And I must admit, each time, increasingly as I get my checkbook out to pay for, I'm sounded very old fogey here, get my checkbook out. When I get my PayPal flexing to pay for something on this game, I begrudge it more and more, whereas I never used to. And I think it's largely down to just this huge influx of premium tanks. It's continual. I think we're going to have another 4 or 5 this year. Now the new Chinese premium tank destroyer that will come into the game this week, I believe. Very, very soon we will see the French premium tank destroyer, the tier 8 premium one that will come into the game probably very, very shortly. There's a T-44 lightweight Russian light tier 8 being play tested at the moment. There is this what is it, the bedpan one, the SDD whatever it, no, that's sexual you know what I mean, that one, tier 8 Russian medium tank that is being play tested some time ago. There's that upgrade of the SU-100Y that was going to be bought in at tier 8. Haven't heard anything about that for a while, but that's still bubbling around. There's just loads of these premium tanks, and it seems to me that the wargaming, I don't know whether they're just trying to milk the game as much as they can because they know so business people who know how this works. There's a life cycle in companies and business, and as businesses sort of mature, they look to capitalize on their product as much as they possibly can while they invest in something new, because they know that eventually everything dies, everything drops off. So if you continually reinvest, you've got the better chance to keep going. Some of the best companies I've ever worked for have been extremely good at seeing the trends of how things are going and jump on them. But to do it, they need the money, and it strikes me that that's what Wargaming are doing at the moment. They are milking the player base of their most successful product as hard as they possibly can, and then reinvesting it in other areas for the time when World of Tanks drops as a product. It's continuing to grow in a lot of places, not so much in North America, but in other places it's continuing to grow, and while that's going, they're fine, but they need to have the next thing. Now, there's this what is it called, arena or whatever it is that they're investing in. There's been various other things they've tried to invest in, and none of them have really worked. World of Tanks has still been head and shoulders their most successful product. World of Warships is a fairly stable player base, as I understand it, but not really making the kind of coin that they want to. So that they're continuing to look into reinvest, and I think they're just milking this game as much as they can. And Gamescom's a huge example of that in my mind, just the complete lack of anything new. So this was a Q&A that thanks to Daily Bounce reproducing, and the questions and the answers are identical to things we've discussed for months, and we learn nothing new here at all. So tier 6 and tier 8 vehicles are always seen to the bottom of the player list. Any plan to fix this? We're continuing to work on the new matchmaking system, and yes, there will be definitely fixes in time. The entire mechanism is quite complex, and we need to address every issue. This has been the answer they've had for since that new matchmaking was brought in. Tier 8s are no longer relevant. You get tier 10 games so often in tier 8s that it's not true. Same with tier 6s. You're bottom tier, you're in a tier 8 game all the time, and it's no fun. I prefer now tier 7 tanks because they seem to get a fair crack of the whip. Tier 5s seem to get a fair crack of the whip. You're better off actually playing a tier 9 these days, I think, because you get top tier quite a lot, you get mid tier quite a lot, and if you're mid tier in a tier 9, it means you've got lots of tier 8s to kill, and that's great. So tier 9s, it seems like all the odd number ones are better. 5, 7 and 9 seem to me much better, and 10's always 10's, but I don't like 10's very much. Platoons never seem to be at the top of the list, excluding tier 10s. Are players punished for playing in platoons? If not, are any changes planned? Well, this is actually something I haven't seen anyone ask before, and it's actually obviously true. I think I do remember seeing something some time ago that in the matchmaking criteria that you do get penalised if you're in a platoon, because it's assumed you'll work together and therefore you'll have an advantage. But their answer: we're looking into this and we'll improve it as soon as we can. Does that sound like a holding statement, or does that sound like a holding statement? Any plans to change the matchmaking for vehicles with special matchmaking? If not, will you reintroduce the option to play with tanks of the lower tier than their own? Currently we don't have such plans. So this links back to this top one. If you have a tier 8 limited matchmaking tank, 9 times out of 10 you either get a tier 9 game or a game with all tier 8s, and that is a nerf to limited matchmaking tanks. If you are driving around in a KV5, good luck trying to take on a defender. Good luck some of these new premium tanks will just rip you apart. Whereas in the old days, in the old matchmaking, more often than not you got in a game where you were with tier 7s or tier 6s, and then that armour could dominate. Not always, and nobody wants to be constantly, well, I don't want to be constantly top of the tier, but it just have a fair crack of the whip. That's all I'm asking for. Maps. Will there be any new maps? Only reworks ones. Will we get bigger maps or random battles? Yes, new maps are coming. We've been saying this for ages, but first we finish the work on the HD quality maps. Who gives us stuff about that? Now, I know they need to invest and make the game look pretty for new players, but when you sit on playing random battles and you get the same map come round all the time, or just out of your 10 maps you play, it's the same 2 or 3 maps repeatedly, then it just drives you insane. What about boosts and climbs? Some of them are supposed to be removed, but some players can still abuse them. Is this being fixed? We know that in some cases climbs significantly affect battles. No kidding, Sherlock. With update 9.2, so they are dropping it. They are removing some of the passageways to reduce climbing, and they're continually looking at it to try and get it under control. I have no issue with a little bit of climbing, but some of these people go absolute bananas, and they take their tank out of the game for a couple of minutes while they get into position. They then sit at the back, spamming from there, and doing nothing that's actually useful to the team. Unless climbing should be stopped, except in a couple of very low key areas. I wouldn't want it not to be a climb at all, but certainly not be able to climb right up to the top of these mountains. It's just ridiculous. It's like some kind of ego boost. Are you going to introduce the Storm Tiger in the future? Currently, we're not working on this vehicle. So the Storm Tiger, for those who don't know, was a German assault tank, massive frontal armor, massive it had a like a petard mortar type gun on the front of it. That would be awesome, but no. In fact, I seem to recall there was, I don't know where it's gone now, but there used to be a map where you could look into a barn or something, and one was sitting there, and that was always seen as a bit of a tease that maybe Wargaming were planning to bring it in, but no, they're not anytime soon anyway. But mark it up as a premium, who knows, they might bring it out. Are there any plans to change self-propelled guns? For example, the limitation of only one per team. So this was a change they brought in the previous patch that allows artillery to once again platoon, but only on the basis of one per game. And they're saying they don't plan on having even more restrictions for self-propelled in random battles. However, in ranked battles there'll be a maximum of 2 self-propelled guns per team. Okay. Will there be multi-nation crews like in World of Tanks console? Didn't know that. So, for example, a German tank captured by Soviets that can train both nations. Maybe, but at the moment it isn't something we're working on. Well, that's intriguing. I didn't know that happened on the console. Well done, you console peasants. Are more customization options planned for tanks? For example, more skins, emblems, self-made emblems, etc. Yes, this is something we're working on in the future. I expect that will cost us gold to do, and I guess if you want to personalise a tank that you love, then so be it. I mean, you still can. You already can with emblems. You can put emblems on it if you want, but there was some talk about you could put, I don't know, like a helmet on the tank, or put some sort of extra feature that just makes your tank look that little bit different, which for some of us, if you've got a big ego, then that's fine. Now that you've introduced a Poodle as the first Polish tank, is the Polish tech tree coming in the near future? Now this is what everyone expected to be announced at Gamescom, or the rumour was the Italian one, but obviously that was proved to be a fake news as well. But it says currently working hard on the Polish tech tree. However, it's still too early to share information of how or what it's going to be like. As soon as the tech tree is ready, we'll release it to super test and share the information with you. Stay tuned. Now that's weird. Why would you bring out that Poodle tank so early if the tech tree is nowhere near being finished? And I'm reading between the lines, that suggests that they're having a few issues with it, which is intriguing. Do you have plans to introduce Japanese tank destroyers at some point? The answer: we've collected quite a lot of information on Japanese self-propelled guns and tank destroyers, and we're now processing this information. Right now it's way too soon to speak about introducing any of these vehicles into the game. For now, the Polish tech tree has higher priority. So at some point, I think, is the answer there. I mean, they're all fictitious. All fictitious self-propelled guns and tank destroyers, Japanese. There may have been some early part of the war, but basically they're all going to be paper tanks. Any plans to improve dated premiums like the IS-6, Type 59, WZ-111, 112, etc. in the future? As for Japanese premium tanks, they have already been sufficiently improved with the most recent balance changes. So that's the Type 59, the WZ, and the 112, which is confirmed by both players' feedback and statistics. Well, I think they have. I think they're fine. I don't have a problem with any of them. As for the preferential matchmaking tanks, we're working on different solutions of how to tackle that situation, but we haven't made a final decision yet, so please bear with us. Refer you to my earlier comments about preferential matchmaking. They are shit. Economy. The introduction of bonds has been controversial. How do you see the influence on games how do you see their influence on games, and what is the plans for future? It might have come across at the beginning that bonds were exclusive to ranked battles. However, this is not the case. As we mentioned before in our official articles, we plan to make bonds accessible for normal players as well, as long as they buy them. We do not want to force everyone to play ranked battles. With the release of Update 9.2, bonds will be earned via Player 10 random battles and the new Grand Battle mode. So get your tier 10s out if you want to have the bonds and get OP equipment. That's the answer. Until they sell them in the store, in which case you can buy them. Cynic that I am. Any improvements to the reward system for ranked battles? Currently, we're planning to change the reward system in a way that you can earn more bonds by getting into the higher ranks at the end of each stage. This way, you will earn a considerable amount of bonds, even if you don't place in the seasonal leadership board. There was some consternation about ranked battles and how the awards were given. I didn't really follow it all, to be honest, but because I think I didn't enjoy the ranked battles very much. It's just people spamming even more gold than they do in random battles. But they're looking at that, so that's all you need to know. Game modes. Will you improve ranked battles with a better score, longer sessions and different leagues? So again, we're looking at improving the functionality of the game, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Will there be a different battle modes for other tiers other than 10? Yes, but right now we're focusing on the end game content first. So that's good news. I think it'd be fun to be able to play in a different level tank, and that will make it more open to everybody. Because if you haven't got a tier 10, you can't enjoy ranked battles, can you? What are your future plans for clans and clan wars? Development of the global map is one of our top priorities. We collected your information about the global map, and based on that we're introducing improvements for this game mode. Actually, many of these suggestions have already taken over for the upcoming 6th season starting on the 28th of August. After the season ends, there'll be a huge Clan Wars event with new mechanics currently set for the end of November. Keep in mind this date may change. The 7th season, which is coming next year, will differ significantly to the 6th, and we'll also try to implement the best ideas from the player base. Aside from the global map, we're working extensively improvements to the Stronghold game mode. For example, since the 21st of August, it's been possible to earn industrial resources in random battles with tier 10 vehicles. That's interesting. I don't play Clan Wars. My clan has just started playing them again, and I'm never on when they play it, unfortunately, but I would love to play some more. But anybody who does, let me know whether those changes are significant or not. I don't really know, to be absolutely honest. Will there be more training opportunities for new players? Of course. For example, we've introduced a boot camp with update 919.1, massive improvement compared to the previous tutorial. Don't know if there's any new players on here, but if they are, let us know. Is it better? It's one of the weaknesses World of Tanks always had. Tutorial was just woefully inadequate, just showed you how to point the gun and how to drive the tank, didn't tell you anything else. And I would hazard a guess that a huge percentage of new players just dropped out before it got anywhere, which is a shame. User interface changes, so improvements to the carousel, etc, etc. Yes, they're working on it. About time too. You can get these all in mods, so why is it taking them so long? Will there be more information available in the garage on tank parameters such as terrain resistance or gun stabilization? Yes, we're planning to reduce this in the future. Good. Now, these are the hidden stats. Terrain resistance and gun stabilization, these are hidden stats. At the moment, when you look at your tank in the garage and it tells you what your how fast you can drive and what your acceleration is and all that kind of stuff, it's a load of bullshit because it depends on the ground you're on. So the terrain resistances have a huge impact on it, and a tank that on one side has very, very good acceleration criteria but terrible ground resistance is actually slower than one that has good ground resistances but slower acceleration, etc, etc. So it's about time they actually showed these stats. Now you can find them, you can go, I think Tanks GG cover a lot of them, but it should be in the game, it should be obvious. In World of Warships, you're able to choose your favourite port. Will something like this ever come to World of Tanks, like choosing your own garage? At the moment, we don't have plans to introduce it. Yeah. There's so many other things need fixing. Please don't think about things like that just yet. Other things. We feel developers don't listen to criticism, complaints, and suggestions. Please explain how other factors come into play in the development of new content. We do listen carefully to your opinion and your feedback, and we try to implement them whenever it's possible. Aside from the forums, we actively communicate with contributors and bloggers to get the most recent feedback from our players. So they're in a no-win situation, right? Everybody bitches, and no sooner do they play, the suggestion that they're going to nerf one of your favourite tanks, everyone gets up in arms and what have you. I do fear that they listen too much to the Super Unicum play base. There's really good players. You just have to look at some of the nerfs and buffs that have been recently. It's because they're listening to those guys over and above the average player. Now, my channel is set up for average players like me, and I would wish they would listen to the average players more, not just the best players, because the best players are the best players, and they'll get something good out of anything. Us average players, it's like it annoys the tits off me when I watch some some reviews of tanks when somebody's been given a press account to look at a new vehicle, and you look at the crew with them. They've got like 6 crew skills because they're allowed to do that, and you think, well, I'm never going to have a 6 skill crew on that tank. I'm never going to be as good as that guy playing full stop, and yet he's got a superhuman crew as well. So how's that a good reflection on this vehicle? Which is why when I do my reviews, I try and make them a bit more real. I try and take out what I think would be, even on the test server I did the Chinese TDs, I put crews in them. I could have boosted them up to 4, 5, 6 crew skills if I'd wanted to, but I didn't. I deliberately chose a level where I thought probably you would likely be at if you were playing this game properly, to show what an average player like me, slightly above average player, would do with an average crew. That's the point. So Wargaming needs to listen to the average player, not just the super unicums. Will system in World of Tanks be like World of Warships, where you get daily containers for received XP to encourage players playing the game? We don't currently have such plans. Now they have. That's not quite a good answer. They have had some sort of daily missions happening a bit more, which I think is good. Anything that makes you go back and play, I think it's good. Not so hard that you just can't do it. That would be terrible. At the moment we feel that battles end too fast and become one-sided, such as 15 v4s and after 4 minutes. In that case, can you share stats on changes to battle results and times over the last update? Obviously we cannot share exact data and stats. We do confirm this is in fact true. There are an analysis those stats looking into solving this issue. So I mean, it's the avalanche effect, isn't it? Once you start losing, you lose really quickly. I'm not surprised. I don't really see how you can change that particularly. I'd much happier if they could do something about the matchmaking, so you don't get a situation where you've got 3 or 4 absolutely outstandingly good players on one team and complete beginners on another team. I wish there was some way they could work out skill-based matchmaking. I know it's not easy, but I would wish they would. The number of times you go on, and even when you're on a team with very, very good players, you're not going to have a cracking game, probably, because they're going to do all the damage. They're going to win it for you, and you'll probably follow up and get the sweepings at the end. So it works both ways. Will you be introducing a new set of personal missions? Yes, but new personal missions will be introduced in the future. More information will disclose closer to the release. Good. We need them, frankly. So yeah, some interesting feedback, some less than interesting feedback. Anything there caught your eye? Let me know down below. So as I mentioned earlier, the only real news that came out of Gamescom this year for World of Tanks was the introduction of new HD maps, 3 of them. Now they do look really pretty, and that's great, but I would much rather have new maps, full stop, myself. But hey, World of Tanks will do what it wants to do, so it seems. But here's a video that just introduced these new maps, and you can see some of the glory of them. They do look nice, and it will enhance the I guess the eye candy effect of the game. So it only takes a couple of minutes, but let's have a look at this World of Tanks video.
The work on the transition of maps to HD is in full swing. The most important task in this process is to keep the performance on the same level. Some preparatory changes were implemented into the game client, for example, DirectX 11. It improves the performance and allows for different graphics improvements such as tessellation. Tessellation is a technology that splits the geometry of an object into smaller triangles. Therefore, the object's level of detail improves.
It is damn pretty, isn't it? I mean, it really looks very,
We've also improved terrain, the ground surface. When it's rendered, a lot of materials get blended, such as grass, ground, asphalt, rocks and so on. It creates a high load on a graphics card. But in HD maps, we implement the virtual texture technology. The graphics card pre-mixes all materials and stores them in a separate buffer. Now, when terrain is rendered, the materials won't blend for every frame over and over again, but will be taken from that buffer.
So basically,
this reduces the load on the
graphic
graphics
cards
card
will do
significantly and helps achieve good performance.
You won't need to have the highest end computer, which is good. Good
In
on you,
addition
Wargaming.
to simple optimization, video memory is saved as well. We don't use many unique textures and big unique objects. They're composed from a number of smaller ones. For example, if we need to draw a texture of a big long wall, we can do this by using one big texture, but it will require a lot of video memory. Instead, we use a certain number of smaller textures. There can be a brick wall at the top, covered with dust and mud at the bottom and so on. It's like assembling a construction set. There are a number of details that you can use to create absolutely unique objects. In production, this method is more difficult, but it allows us to save a lot of resources.
Barrage balloon.
HD maps require a lot of work on lighting. The light should be blocked and reflected off the objects on its way to the camera. For example, the sunlight that falls on a red wall will light up the nearby vehicles and objects in red. To do so, we use our own implementation of the global illumination technology. The new maps will have not only the improved graphics, but also new effects. Fire will be changed and improved on all maps. New textures, smoke, particles, and effects that convey heat distortion and shock waves from the explosions were created. The particles can now receive and cast dynamic shadows. The water will be improved as well. It'll have realistic reflections, light scattering in the water volume and foam. Shots, explosions, and vehicle movement will create realistic geometric waves on the water. Also, almost every map will have a unique object on it. It'll be a destroyed airship on Redshire and a battleship on Himmelsdorf. This isn't the full list of changes. We'll continue our work on HD maps and share more details with you.
So that's pretty cool. It does look really, really cool. Visually stunning. And I like the fact that they continue to work really hard to make sure that there isn't such a heavy load on the computer. You know, if you're using the highest end gaming PC, then you don't know what the fuss is. But if you're playing on some old laptop and you want to have a good game, but you just can't cope with the graphics, then that's no fun at all. Especially if it's a game you've been playing for a long time and they upgrade it and suddenly you can't play it. That's a little bitch. So I like the fact, and there's some stat about what a huge percentage of players play on very basic technology, and so I like the fact Wargaming don't lose sight of that. You don't need to have the biggest rig possible to play this stuff, and so from that sense the HD maps are welcome because they are continuing to lighten the load on the graphics card that you have, but still give you a visual spectacular thing. But I still wish we had new maps. Just new maps, please. Please, please, please. Anyway, let me know what you think of this eye candy. So finally, let's talk about Wargaming and their clumsy, overzealous approach sometimes. So I'm not going to go into huge detail. I don't really cover World of Warships. I do play it from time to time, but this channel is primarily this video is primarily about World of Tanks. You got it wrong there. But they managed to balls it up again. So not quite as bad as Foshgate, but getting there. So quick intro. They decided they were introduce Graf Zeppelin, a German Tier 8 aircraft carrier, and it's been in test for quite a long time, and a lot of people were saying how it was too good. It had torpedo bombers that were so effective. Other areas it was not so good, but Wargaming in their wisdom nerfed the bejesus out of it and then stuck it up for sale, over Gamescom. It was obviously what they wanted to release at Gamescom. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about this drive to milk the player base as much as possible. They were doing Gamescom, they were going to launch this aircraft carrier, whether or not it was any good, whether or not it was right or not. And apparently it is shit. Absolute pile of dog turd. And all the contributors said so. They said this ship is not ready, it should not be out there. One guy, iChase, thoroughly recommend his videos, by the way, if you like World of Warships. Does fantastic videos. That's all I think he only focuses on World of Warships, but he basically went bananas about this, and he's a very balanced guy. He doesn't tend to swear very much. He's not like Fosh, where just every other word is a swear word. iChase rarely says anything, but he was really pissed, and he said so. He did a review of this thing saying basically anybody who's bought it should demand their money back because it's not finished, it's not right, it shouldn't be up for sale. And the bit that got him in most trouble was that the bit, and whoever it was that designed this thing should be fired. Now, he didn't name anybody, and he was using it as a sort of generic term, but Wargaming went bananas at that. He's a community contributor. They immediately stripped him of that role, and basically told him that sort of requesting somebody to be fired is out of order. Now, if he named somebody, that's one thing, but it was just generic, whoever's responsible for this deserves to get their head kicked in, or whoever, that kind of comment, which, not saying old Joe Bloggs down at Minsk, he should be the one that goes. He wasn't pointing out anybody, but they came down on him like a ton of bricks. And he is not the sort of guy that does this very often. This is very, very unusual for him, and yet they still came down on him like a ton of bricks. And reality is, what he was saying was true. This ship was rubbish by all accounts. I've not got it, I'm not going to buy it, I'm not the sort of thing I would spend my money on anyway. But it sounds like everybody agrees with him. And to be fair to Wargaming, they didn't do what they did with Fosh and threaten copyright strikes or anything like that. But they did remove him from the community contributor thing. Within a day, they recognised that they'd overreacted and came back and apologised. They also pointed out this ship was not really up to standard, and anybody who bought it could get their money back. Those who kept it would get some kind of special camo once they'd reworked it. It was removed from sale, so basically vindicating everything he had said and all the other contributors had said. But what worries me a little bit about this, or a lot, is the fact that Wargaming's initial reaction is to censor somebody. Now, one of the beauties about YouTubing about this game, World of Tanks, World of Warships, anything from Wargaming, is that they give you carte blanche copyright. There's a lot of games you have to apply to get copyright to be able to do YouTube videos on them. World of Tanks have a blanket approval, so anybody can do anything they like using any of the content within reason of World of Tanks and World of Warships and World of Aircraft, if you're stupid enough to play that game. And yet every time somebody has deemed to have stepped over the mark, they slam them in one way or another. They did it with Fosh and all the fallout that happened there. They've done it with other YouTubers. They're doing it now. There's been rumours of other YouTubers they've done. I'm not entirely sure, but they've definitely done it here with iChase as well. And it worries me a lot, as somebody who does YouTube videos, that suddenly Wargaming are going to say, Gamer Dom, he's just not, I don't like the way he's speaking, we shouldn't allow it, and stop doing it now and put some sort of strike on my channel. Now, I don't make a living out of this. It's pure for fun. I don't make any money out of it, really, thanks to YouTube's new revenue stream things. I make barely anything out of this channel, and that's fine. That's not why I do it, although it'd be nice if I did. If I'm honest. But the fact that Wargaming's first reaction is to slap somebody down for daring to say something like this. Now, they said it wasn't because of his review of the ship, it was because he suggested that somebody should get fired. But as I say, he didn't say a particular person, he just said generically, whoever made this thing should be fired. And it does make me and a lot of other people I've seen videos and commentaries from feel a little bit uneasy iChase is not sure whether he's going to come back to the community contributors. I know Aging Jedi, who's another YouTuber, used to be a community contributor, left at the same time as Jingles did because of the Foshgate scenario. He was doing a video on it, and he was talking about he was thinking about coming back, but this has made him convinced that maybe he won't come back as a community contributor. And it just, yeah, it makes us all a little uneasy, shall we say. I'm not in the same scale of those boys, but it just, this, is it the Russian effect? Is it this sort of censor first, ask forgiveness later kind of scenario? I don't know. I'm not being racist. I'm not being putting national stereotypes, but it does seem like they always want to slam people down first, which, given the fact they are supposed to allow freedom to talk about their games as much as you want within reason, and if it's not in beta or preview mode or anything like that, you can talk about pretty much anything. So yeah, bit worrying indeed. So to wrap up this ramblings of a full episode, cover an area that I don't normally, normally this is all about World of Tanks. Talked about World of Warships in this edition, so let's talk about a new wargaming game that's coming through. This is Total War Arena. Some of you may remember this game. It was originally done by, I forget now, but I had it on Steam. Who was it done by? Sega, that's it. Was it Sega? And Creative Assembly. Anyway, whatever. It is a 10v10 multiplayer online game based around ancient Rome, Greece, that kind of era, and you control 3 units in a mass battle of 2 teams of 10. And it's a real-time game. You play it out, a bit like World of Tanks, but with spears and swords and shit. And it was kind of fun. I was never very good at it, but I quite enjoyed playing it. So Wargaming bought this title some time ago. They've been working on it quite a long time actually, and talked a lot about it at Gamescom. The alpha phase has just finished. They are now, the reason for talking about it is they are opening it up, the beta test now, for new players. If you want to go and sign up, no guarantee you'll get accepted, but if you're fancying having a go, if you fancy yourself as a Caesar or an Alexander or someone like that, then now's your chance. There's all sorts of different nations. You get ancient Greeks, Macedonians, Romans, barbarians of various descriptions. So it's there. Go and have a look. Go and sign up. You can get to it from the normal wargaming website from World of Tanks. If you don't want to trust to vagaries of it and you desperately want to spend money and give money to wargaming, then you can buy access if you wish it. There's a number of bundles here which give you gold and access, and some cases special premium units. Where have we seen special premium units? So if you wondered where all the money is going from all World of Tanks premiums, it's probably going in this game here. There's various packages. You can get this classic one here, £26.32p, which gives you a special unit of Peltas, is that? Yeah, and also some German scouts, and you get some equipment of some sort. So anyway, it was kind of a fun game. I enjoyed playing it when it was on Steam. As I say, I was pretty shit at it, but I've signed up for the beta. I've asked to join the beta. I don't think I'll be spending any money on it myself, but you never know. I am a sucker sometimes, and some of these do look quite fun. But look at this, £87. Okay, you get a lot of shit, right? You get a lot of premium units, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, just thought you might like to know if you are interested in something a bit different, still multiplayer, still online, then check out Total War Arena. It's coming to you very, very soon as a beta and ultimately as a proper game via our friends at World of Tanks and Wargaming. Anyway, I hope you found this Rambles interesting. I'm afraid that there wasn't a huge amount of new stuff, but we still seem to have made quite a long episode as usual. So for those who moan about my videos being too long, gives you something more to moan about. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe to hear more of my inane comments. I've changed the name of the channel, incidentally. to Mr. Average Plays, because I think it kind of reflects a bit more about what I'm trying to achieve here. You know, I'm not the best player of any of these games. I'm just Joe Average. I enjoy my games. I enjoy playing online games. I enjoy interacting with the online community mostly. You know, there's plenty of places where you can go and see absolutely fantastic play that most of us will never ever achieve. So I've set this channel up really to talk about some gameplay that is just more realistic and more like we will all do. And so the reviews and so forth are designed to be honest. My honest feedback as an average player, what I think of tanks, what I think of games, what I think of, you know, how I played in, and you know, the odd time I get a chance to crow because I've had a fantastic game, then I will do so. Anyway, enjoy your games, whatever they're like and however you enjoy them, but just make sure you have fun. That's what it's all about. And I will see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom signing out.